The Heed the Call podcast are real locker room lawyers.
Hey, Gino, Max says not so fast. This is still his team. Psst, Max. Pete Carroll says guys with tattoos are thugs. That's being a locker room lawyer. I think. I don't know. I've never been in a locker room. Heed the Call. Welcome. The podcast. A football show. And I'm joined by three people who actually make a living going into locker rooms: Connor Orr, Jordan Rodrigue, and Michael Sean Dugard. Do I have it right? Is that what a locker room lawyer is? Just a real Stinky Davis?
There's a lot of words.
There's a lot that's said in locker rooms. If there were lawyers present, a lot of it would not be said.
Interesting. Connor, what is a locker room lawyer to you?
I often find that whole thing, this wouldn't surprise Jordan, very frustrating. Like this whole thing about like, oh, we have a code, and like we this is a code, and this is a brotherhood. Yeah, you guys would sell each other out for a bag of potato chips. Just go pound sand, you know. I don't believe in any of that shit.
Sounds like somebody was on the jet speed for too long.
Probably.
3 minutes in, and I'm already worried about Connor.
I mean, listen, Money Mike, you were in, and we're going to get to Russ in a second. Russ always had what I would deem a complicated relationship with his own locker room. Was Russell Wilson a locker room lawyer?
He was. So the locker rooms, I've only been in the Seahawks one, now that I think about it. But it was very segregated, you know? It was like very stereotypical. It looked like high school, like the D-line guys are listening to what like music you would think the D-line guys listen to, and over in the O-line side, it would be very stereotypical over there. Russ would walk around with like his portable speaker with like gospel blaring, kind of talking to nobody. It felt very cliquey. It was definitely it felt very cliquey. And at least in the time we were there, we're only in there for about 40 minutes or whatever, you know, and they know we're going to be in there. But yeah, it felt very high schooly. This
is interesting, and how often pro football intersects with military, right? The term locker room lawyer is a variation of barrack room lawyer, which originates from military slang. Locker room lawyer refers to someone, often a veteran, who likes to give authoritative sounding but unqualified opinions, especially on legal matters within a group setting such as a locker room or barracks.
That sounds like the NFL.
Yeah. That's pretty common too, I think. Like you always got one dude or two, you know. Kind of holding court.
You'll notice still no Marc Sessler. I know people always are curious about Sessdog and what he does when he's not speaking into a microphone professionally. So I did put out a call on Twitter. What is Marc really doing right now during his mysterious vacation? He used some language that was strange. He said he was going to meet some relatives, something like that.
Relatives.
Let's see what some of our listeners threw out there as possibilities. Okay, and Taylor says enjoying a human vacation, doing things that Earth people enjoy, like the beach, theme parks, hotels, and restaurants. This makes for a truly enjoyable human experience. Checks out. Next. Jay Gard says he's following the trail of Kerouac's The Dharma Bums, drinking nothing but absinthe and coffee, sleeping midday at rest stops, and taking French baths in the restrooms upon waking. At the finale, he'll take some hallucinogenic concoction and boot up a Star Wars on his phone. That checks out. Next. Jarrett Bailey. Oh, we like Jarrett Bailey. The Browns accidentally included him in a group chat that included discussing their draft plans, so he's sitting at his computer all hours of the day, and I think an old buddy of ours added to this one, Blair, I Dream in Red. Check out the next I Dream in Red for more around this.
Oh, no.
Anything else? Stealing the Declaration of Independence, Steve Engstrom offers. And Eric Peck adds, walking through a field of wheat, gladiator style. I think all of the above checks out for the Cess dog. What do you think, Mike? As you've gotten to know Marc Sessler, at least digitally, do you think any of those check out for you?
Yeah, I think I like the Browns one. That makes sense. Although instead of being at his computer, I would imagine like these black vans pulling up while Mark is at one of these rest stops sleeping, and just scoops him up, and we may not see Mark again because he has breached national security.
Yeah, absolutely checks out. All right, we got a lot to get to, but why don't we get going? We're going to do some totally worthless and meaningless pre-draft power rankings, which is just a vehicle to get into conversations about some teams we haven't talked about as much. Listen, I'm being upfront about it. We have a new segment I'm really excited about because I love interfacing with the fellow listeners. We're going to have voicemails, user voicemails, listener voicemails at the end of the show. But first, as always, the news.
Hey guys, Russell here. Yes, the typical boring, yes, Russell, the robot Russell, the one you guys love to know. Real exciting. I'm real exciting. But anyways, everybody has to have an alter ego, right? And I've been thinking about what my alter ego would be, and I think I have an alter ego. His name's Mr. Unlimited.
Oh, that's always my favorite. There's so many great cringe Russ clips from social media over the last 10, 12 years, but that one gets me because it goes on for another minute or so. Sierra's involved at one point. Mr. Unlimited Russ is my favorite Russ.
Oh, that was so bad. I'm working on I remember, I was covering the team, obviously, at the time of that. It was real bad in real time. We made jokes about it all the time. But I'm working on a project that I'll announce later. But it involved me talking to some people about some people close to Russ, for this. And I did get a couple people to admit, yeah, man, we love him. But even that, we told him that was crazy. Because he seems to operate as if there aren't people who tell him the truth. Seems like a guy who you would think surrounds himself with a lot of yes men. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But at least in that case, I can say with confidence, there were people around him who were like, dude, this is very corny. Why are you doing this? And I was
we need a filter. You got to go through somebody before anything goes live. Anyway, Russell Wilson is now a member of, wait for it, the New York Giants. Well, we predicted that for a month on this show. Wilson has found a suitor in Big Blue, signing a one-year deal worth up to $21 million. That from Schefter. The deal includes $10.5 million guaranteed. So there you go. That's the money, the going rate for Russell Wilson at this stage of his career. And Conman, you wrote about this eloquently. Well, can you write eloquently, or is it just speak eloquently? I don't know who gives.
Connor can write eloquently.
Yes, he can.
I don't think so.
That this move is tied also to the Jameis Winston move, and it speaks to a larger decision-making process by the team that turned away from Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers turned away from them, and now this is their plan B. A Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston with a side of Tommy Cutlet's poo-poo platter. Your thoughts, Conman?
I think so. This would be, I have a 3-leg Giants offseason prediction parlay, and it was
we call that the Olsen here, by the way, just so you're
aware. Greg Olsen 3-legged parlay.
Okay. Wonder why. And
what's your name? G-Ray.
No.
How you drop my drawers and let us see my third leg? Chilling on the 7th floor. I gotta let the chickies know. Greg is in the house. And
okay, Justin.
Yeah.
The number of beats is staggering. So many beeps.
So the first leg was to sign Jameis Winston. The second was Russell Wilson. And the third leg of this is Travis Hunter. We talked about it a little bit on the show that I don't think Travis Hunter got to show the full scope of his deep ball skills at Colorado because Shedeur, one thing he doesn't do well is he doesn't have that cannon arm strength. And a lot of his contested catches were actually coming back and having to fight for the ball against the cornerback. And so I think Dable, after having dealt with Daniel Jones, especially for the last 2 years, a quarterback who statistically threw before the sticks almost more than any other quarterback in the NFL. He was not throwing to the first down marker. Now you have Russ. Now you have Jameis, two quarterbacks who throw beyond the first down marker with regularity. You're just trying to push the ball down the field and negate so many of the other deficiencies that you have. I just like that it's a plan. It's a plan that I understand, and it's a plan that I think buys them time to potentially select a quarterback next year and not force themselves to fall in love with Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, but I think Shedeur Sanders' fit is more like what you saw Kirk Cousins do in the early days with the Shanahan tree people. I actually think that Shedeur will be coveted by a huge population of coaches, including, in my opinion, Brian Daboll, not just because of that skill set and ability and sort of that comp, the early days of when Kirk really made the set the foundation for like the ultimate bag getter of the NFL. But also, I think it's just a more efficient process. You know, the deep ball is great. It's gorgeous, right? It's sexy, as Russell Wilson has said about his own deep ball. But it also is a low probability play. And, you know, Travis Hunter is a unicorn prospect, and I want him obviously to go to the best team who's going to maximize and actually have a full and developed plan for all of the different things that he's going to need to do, not just as a corner, but as a receiver, and how he's going to split his time and sort of to maximize his production in every way possible. But I also think if you're looking at a quarterback and you're looking at a long-term vision for any organization, you know, somebody who's not just going to get you the low probability flash play, but actually set a foundation for efficient quarterback play for multiple years. That's why I would not rule out them still taking Shedeur. I would like to see Connor eat a jar of olives also. So,
yes, Connor did say on our previous program that he would eat a jar of olives if the Giants took Sanders with their first pick in the draft.
Why olives?
Bring out the olive.
oh my God.
Man, we had a very unhealthy estimation of mental health in the turn of the century. I just want to say them, and Maury Povich didn't do anything to help that.
Oh, right.
Go ahead, Connor.
Yeah. I hate olives. It's my least favorite food. It's probably the one thing that I can't stomach. I love eating. It's what I live to do. And olives are just like the one thing that is outside of that circle for me. So
Can I say that I was ruminating on this Giants situation even since our last show. And at first on Monday, I was like, you know, I see what they're doing here because we were presupposing that Russell Wilson was the other shoe to drop, and now it has. And then I thought about it some more, and I'm like, what the hell are the Giants doing? And I'm wondering if what this really is, what really just happened here was that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll just got their death warrant signed with the team, that all of this is going to end with two bad quarterbacks. Do not create a good quarterback. So you're going to see a lot of subpar play at the game's most important position. You're going to see a lot of both quarterbacks, probably Russ for the first 6 to 8 games, Winston for the next 4 to 6 games, and then maybe Tommy Cutlets to close this thing out on a 3-14 or 5-whatever campaign. And then it ends with Mara coming in and saying what you know he's going to say to both of them.
You're fired!
And we don't celebrate these things, Connor, but at the same time, I think they have been put in a brutal situation, and not the one that I thought they were going to be put in, which is pair a veteran with a young quarterback. It looks like this is the course they're going, and I think it's a course to nowhere for the Giants.
It could be. And listen, Brian Daboll is going to be heavily involved in the selection of the quarterback. And whether there's someone in the later rounds that he thinks he could try and develop, I think they're going to take a quarterback in the draft. But to me, it comes down to, if you're Mara and you're overseeing all this and you believe, at least potentially, that there's a chance that somebody else has to develop this quarterback, don't you fall on some of your own biomarkers that you've counted on to draft quarterbacks through other regimes? And you have members of your own family that are in the personnel department. And Shedeur doesn't meet up with a lot of the size comps of quarterbacks that they've drafted in the past. He doesn't meet up with a lot of quarterbacks in terms of arm strength that they've drafted in the past. He's tough in the pocket. He's almost like spicy Teddy Bridgewater for me. I don't know if anybody else likes that comp, but it's not the kind of quarterback that the Giants have historically coveted as an organization. So that's why it never made sense to me. And that's why I think what you really should be looking at right now is how they're divvying up responsibility, who is at these pro days, who's in these meetings, and who is leading all of this, because that could maybe also be a window into what direction we're headed.
I could see some of Brian Daboll's frustration in this entire process, being someone
Sure.
who will have a voice in all of this, being, hey, what if we actually didn't do it the way we were always doing it before?
I don't think he wanted to sign Daniel Jones, but
So
again, right.
So that's the thing, is like, if he, I do think to your point, Connor, the selection they do make at this particular position and how high they make the selection is going to tell you a lot about who is perceived still as safe and who is not.
This really just reads to me like they just don't know what the Browns are going to do. Really, that was my first thought when they signed Russ. It just seems like they paid about $14 million for what if they take Shedeur insurance, which makes sense, honestly, to me, because you don't want to just like, even if you do like any quarterback at 3, it doesn't have to be Shedeur, although now that Connor says that, I am a fan of the olive thing. I hate olives too, but I'm not eating those. But yeah, it just really seems like insurance. It's like, all right, we like a quarterback, but we don't know what the hell the Browns got going. And if you kind of read all the tea leaves with all the leaks and stuff, the Browns are either really indecisive or just playing a fun game of telephone with everyone, or some version of both. So yeah, it's really, when I saw them sign Russ, I was like, oh, he finally gets to go to New York, which was rumored to want to do when he was in Seattle. So much so that he got himself traded to the Yankees after originally being with the Rangers. He even took at bats, I think, at Yankee spring training, which was weird. But that shows how much
took
he
one at
wanted
bat.
to be.
He
Yeah,
struck
that's right.
out against a young future Yankee named Max Fried. I just rewatched it, actually.
Oh boy, poor you. I remember there was like betting odds on whether he would make contact. I wasn't a full degenerate at the time, but I would have hammered the no.
He actually
on
just
that.
missed. The first pitch, he just missed the fastball, fouled it straight back, and then struck out on a 2-2 count. There's your deep breakdown.
Well, yeah. So I think what the Giants are doing honestly makes sense to me from a just not knowing what could happen at 2 standpoint, because that is a huge variable. Like even if you like a quarterback and you don't make a plan,
Mike,
you're just
they just
screwed
signed
if they take your
Winston.
guy.
The Giants had their insurance policy. I know the idea of Jameis Winston as an insurance policy seems moderately insane.
Exactly. Yeah.
But why not sign Winston, wait things out? And where's Russ going? If he doesn't go to the Giants, I know he met with the Browns, but I don't think the Browns are hot for Russell Wilson. He didn't have a ton of options. It just seems like if that's what it was, they felt boxed in, so we're just going to settle with these two guys that are not high-level quarterbacks. I just think they could have done better.
I don't necessarily agree with the plan, but I do understand the thought, if that makes sense.
I think Winston is actually your insurance policy because he was only making $4 million, and if you draft, then you cut Winston and you get the offset from another team signing him.
You cut Winston without ever playing him?
Yes, right, because you get offset if someone else signs him, and it's only a $4 million contract. So if he gets signed for the vet minimum, you're only really out like $2.5 million on that. I think he's the insurance policy.
Yeah, right. And then I think when you saw them reach and then fail to get Matthew Stafford, they kind of went into, okay, let's have an extra quarterback on the roster mode in case we reach and fail for somebody else, and then we want to make sure that we have at least 2 levels of that same player currently on the roster. One of them, like Connor said, is cuttable, and then another could start for them if he had to. I don't think that would be their first choice, but they're basically paying both of these guys still less than Daniel Jones's current contract, and one of them might be the backup. So I don't think that that's terrible. Far be it for me to give the Giants the benefit of the doubt on anything, but at the same time, they are clearly trying to at least make sure that they're not starved at the position, even putting a warm body in it who could actually throw the football.
Yes, and all of this, again, continues to point toward Aaron Rodgers ending up in Pittsburgh, but nothing is done on that front. We'll continue to track that. In other news involving former glory teams who have fallen on hard times in recent years, the Patriots, they have been trying to improve their offense around young quarterback Drake May, and they finally made a move on what was that, Tuesday, signing Stefon Diggs, formerly of the Texans, to a 3-year, $69 million contract. And again, this is why the money is bullshit. This is not a 3-year, $69 million deal for a 31-year-old dude coming off an ACL tear. It's actually $26 million guaranteed, and then we'll see where he goes from there. You could argue that's still a lot of money for a 31-year-old that's been known as a locker room lawyer, maybe a little bit, that has been physically banged up. But anyway, he could be ready for week 1. The Patriots certainly hope he is, because he's joining a wide receiver room that had the likes of Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte last season. So Diggs is a piece of the puzzle there, Jordan, with more to come. Certainly a guarantee.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. I think that when he started out in Houston last season, you could see that he was going to have a strong season, solid. I think he can still be a versatile guy who's in the mix. I don't necessarily know that because of his injury history, you're going to make him like a 1 anymore, but he can still do a lot of different things for an offense. And I think with Drake May, pairing him with a player like Drake May, who's ascending into, like, I think rapid stardom in the NFL as a quarterback, I do think that that's a smart move to pair his experience and talent with a young player like that. And I also think the Patriots are not done here. I would imagine they're going to swing a couple more times.
Yeah, let's stick a pin in the Patriots talk because they're going to come up a little bit later. My one other thought on Diggs, Connor, and we had Breer on the show this week, and Breer wrote about the Texans' game plan and how they thought they needed a culture reset on offense. And within that same Burt column, I wish I got into it, but we ran out of time. There was a lot in it about, Stefon Diggs is actually a good dude. Like he gets a bad rap for him, the personality side of things. But it's pointed to me that the Texans also need wide receiver help, and they were willing to let him go out the door. So now the Patriots.
Well, nobody want me to do this, is it? I'm a great guy.
So it's the Patriots.
I'm actually a great guy.
That have to get him the pill, and I think he will, at least with the way the offense is currently constituted.
We see this a lot, though, with, I think, late career.
I'm a great guy.
Late career receivers that may or may not have had the best reputation in the locker room. You do find that a lot of them see the bigger legacy picture as they start to go. And, Brandon Marshall is another guy that reminded me a lot of that, where it's like your last few years, you actually turn out to be this sort of the gold standard in terms of teammates, and then that helps propel you into whatever you want to do later in life. So I think it's a fine signing. I don't know where they're going to play him, but necessarily it's going to be a slot guy, he's going to be a wide, but whatever, it'll be fine.
I think it'll be in a slot. I could totally see that. Yeah.
And that is what's happening in the news. Pivot. Hey, baseball's back. I'm into it. I'm pumped. Can't wait. Had my fantasy draft yesterday with my sons. Got them their first draft. That was fun. Bunch of dads and sons. Cool. Daughters invited, Jordan, but we didn't have any this year. Maybe next year. Anyway, to celebrate opening day, Underdog is making the most exciting part of the game even better by putting $500,000 on the line for the longest home run. Oh, give it to me. Here's how it works. Head to the promos carousel in your Underdog app and find your split the pot longest home run token. Apply your token to the player you think will hit the longest home run on opening day. Gotta be Aaron Judge. 471 against the Brewers, hitting it through the cold Bronx air. Give it to me. You could choose any stat for your pick'em entry. It doesn't have to be home runs. And if your player hits the deepest dinger, you'll take home your share of the pot, even if your pick'em entry doesn't win. So go ahead, scan the QR code on your screen to download a play on the Underdog app and support the heroes by signing up with the code HTC. New users can receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits when they deposit for our U.S. audience only. All right, power rankings. And by the way, you can't have rankings without power. So here we go. Let's get into it. Starting with, I think.
Unless you've got power!
Exactly. I think what we need.
It's a Dan Hanzus shout out.
Okay. I think what we need
the
to
number one, according to Dan Hanzus power rankings today.
All right, Paul Rudd. Easy, Ant-Man. Let's get into these pre-draft power rankings, kind of where we see the landscape of the league as we get out of free agency or in the deep throes of free agency and heading towards the draft. We have Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, Commanders, Packers, Rams, top 8, Chargers, Vikings, Broncos, Bengals, Bucks sitting in the twilight zone at 13, Niners, Texans, Seahawks, 16, Bears, Steelers, Cowboys, Falcons at 20, Dolphins, Raiders at 22. Interesting. Patriots, 23. Cardinals at 24, and in the last quadrant, the Panthers at 25, Jags, the Jest, the Colts, the Saints, the G-Men, the Brownies, and Justin's Titans.
Let's go!
At 32, with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So we thought a fun thing to do here would for each of us. What is this? What am I looking at here, Justin?
So this is a board that shows where everyone put each of these teams, sort of breaking it down. You can see here a lot of consensus until you get to number 8, Rams, where Connor has them 18th. But we don't need to dive into that too deep.
Connor, you got an issue with the Rams over there? Or?
I think everybody just needs to be able to handle criticism. So if they don't like it, they got to deal with it. You know,
nice. I like that. See, that's how your rankings have power when you defiant in tone like that. And on this graphic, you should watch on YouTube. Can we Photoshop some shades on Michael Sean Dugar, who otherwise looks hot? Like I'm saying 8.5 out of 10, but maybe throw on some pit vipers or something.
Yeah, I did a little bit of digging. You know, all these headshot graphics I do. I've always put all of us in sunglasses, but scrolled through pages of Mike's Instagram and could not find a picture of him in sunglasses and didn't want to creepily text like, hey, can you send me a picture of you wearing sunglasses?
I'd like to see what you look like in sunglasses, Michael.
Just went with that.
I think Mike's having technical difficulties. Oh, no.
Oh, those are sick.
wow.
He just put them on.
Those are
wow.
sick.
There's like a Marshawn Lynch thing going on now, and I love it. Let's get this screen grab.
I think these sunglasses are who's DK with? It's like the official sunglass partner that all the cool receivers have. I think Odell's with them too.
Very nice.
Yeah,
so let's
DK's
go.
marketing people sent me these.
There you go.
Nice.
So let's use that as his new shot. All right, so let's get into it. Jordan, we each are grabbing 2 teams here to talk about from the top end of the power rings and the bottom. Let's start on the top end. Who did you choose?
On the top end, I picked the Atlanta Falcons. I actually ranked them. I need to see the power rankings. I'm going to pull up my own list.
Well, they're in the
here.
bottom end. Oh, they're in your top end. You
They're
have them
in
up
my
at
top.
11. Holy
Yeah.
God.
Which is why I have them. I had a couple of head scratching rankings myself. I think that that will look head scratching on the outside based on where the season finished up. But I really believe in Mike Penix with this roster. They still need an edge rusher. They added Leonard Floyd. They have holes all over their defense. I expect them to address those in the draft. But when I talk to people in Atlanta about year 2 of this offense moving in with Mike Penix and with this run game that you saw the foundation laid last year with the receiving core that they have that they could still add to as well, by the way. I really think that this could be a team that surprises people this year, especially behind this young quarterback who, like I said, when I talk to people in that building about him, I'm kind of blown away by the way they talk about him relative to his experience level in the NFL. There are some people that are extremely excited about the way he throws the football and the way that Zach Robinson's offense can open up behind the way not only he can throw, but the way that he can basically run the offense in general, the football he's seen and the way that they can, I think, look a lot more mature on this offense and more developed on this offense than we saw, especially at the end of last season. And they'll need to score points because their defense is still going to be shaky, in my opinion. But, if they draft well, I think they'll be okay.
He certainly passed the sniff test in his audition at the end of the year. Mike, who's in the top end of the power rankings for you, and what do they need to do to improve from this point?
All right, in the top end, who did I pick? Oh, I picked the Texans. Where did I have them, actually? I had them, 9th.
Wow,
okay. I think they have a good team. I just really am worried for Coleridge Stroud's health and well-being. Because I'm still not really sure.
You had me there for a second. I was like, is this a guard that I'm missing out on?
I like calling his. I like finding out guys' real names, whether it's T.Y. Hilton, Julio Jones. Like it's fun finding out their real name. So Coleridge, I'm worried about his health and well-being because I do think that their defense is going to be nails again. They've continued to invest in that. I like the C.J. Gardner-Johnson pickup. I like kind of overhauling most of the offensive line there, except for the Tunsil thing. I was just like, wait, no, that was the good lineman. You keep the good lineman so CJ can stay upright. And then now you're looking at some version of like Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, who I watched all last year. That wasn't great. Maybe Trent Brown will play, like Jared Patterson, Titus Howard. Like it's just not Blake Fisher. I'm just naming bodies, which is not like a good thing. It seems like they're doing the opposite of what we expect teams to do when they have like the young franchise guy who's cheap. It's like, oh, let's pour all these resources into our offense. And instead it's like, take away your left tackle. Here's Christian Kirk. God bless. And I'm very worried. And they need to nail like every offensive pick that they get in this draft. Like their defense is cool. Everything, they need to use all their picks on offense.
I thought it was illuminating what Breer wrote about and we talked about this week, that not that Tunsil was a problem in the locker room or a locker room lawyer, but he wasn't a solution. He wasn't a glue guy or whatever. And they're just trying to like turn that room over and make it a more healthy place. And that could come with some growing pains for a team that sees itself in a window right now. Connor, what do you got in the top end?
I have the Vikings, and I think that they should be looking for more depth at cornerback and really should be trying to layer that Brian Flores defense with more help, because you have Blake Cashman is going into his age 29 season. You have Andrew Van Ginkel going into his age 30 season. Harrison Smith is 36. And you have Jeff Okudah on the roster, which to me at least signifies to some degree that you're hoping one of these flyers hits on guys. You had your top 4 corners entering free agency all on expired contracts. And so it's one of those deals where I think you just need to replenish. Like this defense is like the lawn. It's a constant reseeding and reinvestment. And I think that you need to really kind of invest in this because it is the yin to the yang. It's something that really can help JJ McCarthy through a lot of growing pains. It's an aggressive scoring defense. They were one of the best cover zero teams in the NFL last year. So give them more bodies and more options, because Brian Flores is in evolution mode, changed the way that he did things before Minnesota, and I think is going to take another massive leap forward this coming season.
I'm going to stick with the NFC North and talk about the Lions, who I believe is my number 2 team. And let's see. I had what did I have the Lions? I had them at 3, Connor 2, Jordan 1, Mike 3. A lot of teams go into off seasons thinking they're, quote, one piece away from Super Bowl glory, and in many cases those teams woefully misjudge their own roster and their situation. But the Lions are absolutely in that place, and change comes quick in the NFL. I feel like they've now slotted into where the Niners were the last couple of years, where it's like, okay, you're here. Now it's time to go. Now it's time to get over the hump. So how do they do that? They currently pick 28th overall. I think it's imperative, and I know they're going to get helped out a lot just by getting healthy this year. That was killer, the way the football gods ruined their defense. So it's going to be helpful. But I still think, for instance, like expecting Marcus Davenport to hold on the other side, hold down the fort on the other side across from Aiden Hutchinson. We'll see. That guy's not built to play 20 games. So go be aggressive and move up the draft board and go get somebody to play across from Hutchinson and make that a real, like we were talking about, Connor, earlier this week, about collapsing both sides of the line with 2 dogs, and make that like kind of the imprint of your defense. And I looked at DJ's latest mock, and he has 4 edge rushers projected in the top 20 right now. Boston College, Donovan Ezaraku, Marshall defensive end Mike Green, Georgia edge Jalen Walker, Penn State edge Abdul Carter, who some people think can go as high as number 2 to the Browns. Go make a move, trade some picks. They've done such a great job building out a deep roster, which is such a credit to the whole operation, that they are a team that can sustain trading their first and maybe a first next year, or what it takes to move up to get a guy that you think could be an impact player right away and really put some extra teeth into that defense. So the Lions not being afraid to go for it in 25, I'm all about it. Jordan, how about on the back end of your power rankings?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, and normally we won't really do that because they have not been interesting over the last several years, and in fact, we've tried to avoid watching them overall. But James Gladstone, to me, is following a similar pattern to what I saw him do with the Rams in 2023 when he was in charge of overhauling their draft strategy during that sprint rebuild. So basically, they're plugging the middle of the roster with cheap free agency acquisitions. 9 of them, they'll fill out the best available now through the draft, and they'll probably trade a couple of picks for more picks. The Rams 2023 draft class was 14 members, so trading picks for more picks. Found 5 starters and tons of depth, and then they could replace those sort of plug-and-play veterans on cheap deals. And then 2024, they had a smaller free agency class, again, hit the draft with a 10-member class, again, 5 starters. So basically, James Gladstone is following a similar path here. He signed patch or bridge veterans to cheap and low-cost deals relative to their position markets. He's going to hit the draft really hard to ultimately replace if not all of them. and a few will remain as low-cost contributors, which makes sense because that is his expertise. And it's a strategy that does require absolutely nailing the draft, which I think the caveat here should be he just got in the building like 3-4 weeks ago. And so this year might be a little bit more delayed even than what his actual full, like first full fingerprint draft will be in 2026. But it's interesting. I think that this is like a plan to completely rebuild this roster by really strategizing in the draft. And another thing that told me that that's what they're going to do is he hired Jake Temmie, who I'm shocked Les Snead let out of the Rams building while still under contract. He built their JARS program, which is basically their like living computer model that helps them with everything they do in the building, including their draft strategy. And Jake's going to go build that now in Jacksonville, probably under a different acronym. We could probably think of some fun ones. But it's interesting because it is one of the reasons why they were able to so quickly overhaul and rebuild. And so I think this is a team to keep an eye on, especially as it pertains to strategy moving forward in that draft.
Like it. Mike, how about you? Bottom end of the power rankings.
All right, my bottom end of the power rankings, I am going with who did I pick? Oh, the Patriots.
Mike's still wearing the sunglasses, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Well,
we love it.
This ring light I got is super bright anyway, so this is like kind of helping. I had the Patriots pretty low. Actually, when I did my rankings, I sent them to Justin. I told him honestly, 13 through 23 could kind of go any direction you want. Pretty depending on, I think the biggest variable is how much faith you have in whatever coaching staff is in place. Really applicable, I think, to the Raiders, the Patriots, and then obviously with the newer coaches like in Jacksonville too, but in particular with the veteran coaches who you think will maybe like take a roster we don't think is that good, and elevate it or give it a higher floor, which I do think Pete and Vrabel should be able to do. The Patriots went out and spent a bunch of bread, including most recently on Stefon Diggs. I'm with you, Dan. The number is BS on the Diggs contract. I think he got the same amount Diggs did as Cooper Kupp in terms of guarantees. And his like first year cap hit with Seattle is like $9 million or something like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not that crazy. Also on Stefon Diggs, I'm not refuting anyone's reporting because haven't asked anyone about Stefon Diggs, but I do find it very funny when it's like, oh yeah, I liked him. He's a great guy. It's like, sure, man, he's been around the league forever. People he's encountered. Some people probably like him, some people probably don't. I'm sure Deshaun Watson has had dates that went well. It doesn't mean you're just unanimously a great guy. I don't know on Diggs. I just always find that kind of funny. Again, when I did this Russ project, or this project that includes Russ, it was very similar. Like you can find teammates that love Russ, teammates that hate Russ, teammates that don't care. It just depends on who you ask. So I find that very funny on Diggs. If you have to tell people you're a great guy, probably not a great guy.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Can we keep sunglasses Mike forever and always? Like...
Sunglasses Mike don't give a
Oh yeah.
Deshaun is listening to this like, thank you. Someone finally
Dob
said
Kleiman's like, exactly. He's a good guy. Just misunderstood.
Yes. The good guy stuff is like, yeah, whatever, man. Tunsil thing, same thing. It's like, oh, maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he wasn't in locker rooms. Like, come on, man. He's been in the league forever, It depends on who you ask, I'm sure, with literally every player in the NFL. Anyway, the Patriots kind of did the thing everyone says not to do usually when you have cap space, is just blow it on a bunch of players. But I actually, when I looked at the dollar figures, particularly guarantees, I actually like their moves because if you watched the Patriots last year, I'm sorry that you did that. The second thing is that they just kind of didn't have NFL players on the field most of the time, particularly like when injuries started to pile up. And now at the very least, they have NFL players. And like, that's huge for, again, a coach who I think is a floor raiser in Vrabel. Like if you just give him NFL players, his team won't suck. Just like generally speaking. So I thought that was actually really good. And the ones they spent the biggest on, I mean, Milton Williams thought that was fine. Like you have to pay to get people to move to Foxborough. Like that's you pay the Foxborough tax in that way. I went there one time and I was like, oh yeah, I would need a lot of money to get out here. But in terms of their draft stuff, I actually think they're in a good spot. They need like all the premium stuff. They still need a number one edge rusher. I'm not gonna try the Boston College kid's name, but Dan, I believe, said it right.
I did.
Go get him.
I looked it up. It's Ezaraku.
Yeah, you get a guy like that, or the Old Miss kid. I think his first name is like Prince. You draft Will Campbell, short arms be damned. Maybe with your first pick, you go get my guy Kyle Williams from Washington State, who was killing it at the Senior Bowl, like with his routes. Go get that DT from Kentucky. I think I just fixed the Patriots there. I think they're really
so easy.
I believe in the Vrabel floor raiser thing. I do. I'm buying Patriots stock right now on March, whatever day it is right now.
All right, Connor.
For my back end team, I
like Connor's buying stock because he has the Patriots all the way up at 16 in his power rankings.
That's
so
a good coaching staff bump, like Mike's point. I think we all did that, at least in one area. Like mine is the Raiders, and Connor's, I think, is the Patriots, and Mike's, forgive me, you had one. Was yours also the Raiders, the bump, that coaching staff bump?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Maybe even the Panthers, depending on where I had them. Panthers, I believe in Canales, too.
Yeah.
Culture schmulcher.
It's a good point. It was a really good point.
Yeah. I did the Bears and the Patriots because one of those two quarterbacks is going to become amazing, right? And it's going to just take over the league this year. For my back end team, this time I had the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they're one singular, I mean, they have many needs, but their most glaring need is so obvious that I do wonder if another team would even like trade up if they like the same player. If they don't come out of this draft with Tyler Warren, I think it's an absolute disaster scenario for the Colts. Anthony Richardson needs to be in more 12 personnel, 21 personnel. He needs to be in more bigger sets where he doesn't have to just exclusively rely on all of his talents. And some of his best games last year were some of the games where the Colts played their heaviest amount of 2 tight end sets and 2 running back sets. And with that second running back, Warren could be that guy. He could be a fullback out of the backfield. He could be a tight end. He could be an H-back. And I think that's incredibly important because you have to make it work with this guy. You have to. And more 12 personnel, more 21 will at least force the defense to play that game where it's like, okay, well, we're going to guard Tyler Warren with the linebacker, or are we going to guard him with a cornerback? If we put a cornerback out there, is Anthony Richardson just going to run us over? If you're Shane Steichen, this is kind of the area that you need to live in at this point, and you need to make this guy work. Nobody wants to see Daniel Jones over the back end of the season. And so I think that making the game more manageable, allowing him to take more bite-sized chunks out of it makes the most sense. I would do what the Packers did, if I'm being honest, during the Kraft and the Musgrave draft and take 2 of these guys in 3 rounds, because Mo Alley Cox, I think, had a career best, like 53% catch rate last year. And it was terrible. There's no dependable, what do you want to call it? Mid-range targets for this poor kid. So let's do that for him.
Daniel Jones would also benefit from such personnel as you described, which could get a little complicated down the stretch there.
GC, good call. Finally, I want to talk about the Raiders, who are still, buried in the back end of the NFL and maybe the toughest division in the NFL. We have them collectively at 22. I have them at 24, which is the Pete bump culture. Connor 29. Jordan 10? No, that's a typo.
Nope, I did that on purpose. Yep.
What? You are saboteur. 23 for Mike.
Living dangerously.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. So it seems like an insane place to put them in the top 10, but I want to hear you out, Jordan. But I just want to say that the problem and the reason why they're not a top 10 team is because they have had such a horrendous operation when it comes to drafting in the past 5 or 6 years. Prior leadership has decimated this roster. I read this from Barnwell, which I did like a double read, because I was like, there's no way. They have had 14 first and second round picks between 2018 and 2023. Only one of those picks will start for the team. It's Colton Miller, their left tackle. He's turning 30 this year. That was way back in 2018 that they took him. And so because of their poor drafting, beyond poor, the worst drafting in the league, there's no bottom end on this roster. There's no depth on this roster. So this is such a big year and a big draft for Pete Carroll and John Spytek and Tom Brady, I suppose. And I'm just interested to see like how they approach it. This is our Spytek drop. You could use some work. Do they take the best available player at 6 and just get themselves a dog and add another high-end piece? Or is this a wheel and deal situation where they want to build up the roster and try to get more picks to try to fill in all the holes that they have on both sides of the ball. We can't fill them all, but start building something. There's been a lot of talk, Jordan, about how the idea of Pete Carroll is a good one, but it's also one that's made with the idea like he's not here to be in an extended rebuild. He's 70-something years old. What does that mean if that's indeed the course where they're looking to get better quickly? How do they do that? And what is the strategy they take? I'm just very interested in how they handle their draft.
Yeah, and I know I'm out on a limb here with this. I totally understand that. So I see that, and I see how it looks on the outside. I just think John Spytak's done this before. He did this with Tampa Bay when they did their complete overhaul and rebuild and had to not only take on a ton of dead money, but also find a new quarterback and then also draft and develop and get key players and key positions who could help the team win way faster than expected. And he was one of the architects behind that. And I know that everybody wants to like match this team with a running back at 6. And I think, you could definitely argue for that. And Pete Carroll, I would imagine, will argue for that, especially with Janty, who will be probably available at that time. But if you trade that pick back even later in the first round, not only could you get a damn good running back because it's a good class, but also you could get an edge rusher, another edge rusher. You could get help all along your offensive line. They have a couple of interior linemen who they like a lot. And I think that the combination of Pete Carroll, John Spytek, Patrick Graham, who's one of the best defensive coaches in the league, in my opinion, and Chip Kelly running this team with Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, and Max motherfucking Crosby, I do think that this is going to be a team that will surprise people. Just my opinion.
Everything you say makes sense. But when you put a team top 10, that to me is like, here's the group of Super Bowl contenders. But maybe we have differing opinions of what a top 10 team is.
I also put the Broncos at 9, just saying. So
is this
Yes,
your Chargers from last year team, like the team that maybe we didn't love the talent going into the season, but they go hire Jim Harbaugh, and it's like, all right, they have a quarterback. Jim Harbaugh is going to just raise this team so much that's sort of like they go get Geno Smith, they hire Pete Carroll, they're going to surprise people. Same division, by the way.
Maybe.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like I just said in my rant, I do think that like the combination of all of these things that I mentioned does raise their floor quite a bit. I don't know how high their ceiling is, but because that will depend on their draft. But I definitely think that the combination of all of the factors I listed 100% raises the floor of this team. And I think they've finally got people in the building who know ball.
Pivot. That is our pre-draft NFL power ranking discussion. We did this now because it's never too early to look ahead to next season. In fact, on Underdog right now, you could build a pick'em entry out of NFL season higher lowers for 2025. Jordan, if you're so high on the Falcons, you probably think Michael Penix is going higher than his 22.5 passing touchdowns line. And guess what? You could add that to an what's that? Pause for reply. Put that in the copy next time, Justin. Pause from reply from colleague.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
He's like, Mike, explain. No, I'm just
kidding. Yeah. Throw 23 or more touchdowns. If you feel like he has that in him, then you can make some money here in Underdog. Lock in these pre-draft lines by building. And don't play coy. You're a very intelligent woman. You know what that means.
Now.
You paragon of journalistic integrity. You know what an over-under is. We've been down this road before, Rodrigue.
Higher, lower, not
higher, lower. Excuse me. Just scan the QR code on your screen to get started, or sign up with the code HTC. And new users can receive up to $1,000 in bonus credits when they deposit for our U.S. audience only. And now we head to a new segment called Listener Voicemails. Hit it, Justin. First one.
You have reached the official hotline of the Heed the Call podcast. Please leave a message after the tone, and we may use your message on a future show. We thank you for your loyal hedonism.
Hey, Dan, Mike, Jordan, Connor, all the guys, Justin. So my question is, what is a realistic trade that you might like to see before the draft? It can be based on reporting or based on just team fit. Big fan of the show. Thanks, guys.
Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Can mine, not to immediately change the parameters of his very specific question, but can it be like day 3 of the draft? Is that okay?
Go for it, dude. Get crazy.
Give me Kirk Cousins to the Browns. I think that makes the most sense.
Oh, nice.
I think Kirk is just watching and being like, please don't draft another young person that's going to make me so mad. And then once the Browns don't do that at number 2.
Man, you want to talk about battle scars, Connor? Like that reporting from Albert we read, like, he's terrified to force anything right now because he doesn't want to get Penixed for the 2nd straight year. But I guess I get it. I'd feel the same. I got
no one wants a Penix to the face, you know.
Well, some do. Depends what Penix it is.
Anyway, I think he's worked with Kevin Stefanski before. This is one of those situations where, especially if Dove Kleiman is right, maybe Deshaun Watson comes back in 2027, ready to go and be a dog. But until then, Kirk Cousins, I think, it allows you to make life significantly easier for Myles Garrett by taking Abdul Carter. I think that's something that probably is attractive to him. Like you're double teamed at least a little bit less over the back end of your career, and the defense can take a step forward. And Shedeur, not drafting Shedeur, I think prevents the optics from absolutely raining down on you in terms of like you suck at developing this singular position. Kirk Cousins can come in and just hold the fort until you're ready to figure out what's going on with Deshaun or to get your next ticket.
Connor, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I like it, and even more so, I like your Kirk Cousins voice. I wondered, could you do that again? I thought you nailed it, honestly.
What was it again?
Something like, "Oh, please don't draft Shedeur."
I got one that may not be as realistic, but is like fun. Actually, involves the Seahawks. I would send a 3rd round and a 2nd round pick, maybe one of those is a future one, to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson. And then I would send back Boye Mafe, their young pass rusher who's an expiring contract, good young player. I think he had like 9.5 sacks last year or something like that. Send him to the Bengals, send a 2nd round pick, 3rd round pick, which is basically what they have extra from the Geno and DK trades. But again, if you want to make one of those 2026, like a 2026 3 and then this year's 2 or something like that, and then send them Boye Mafe, get Trey Hendrickson back, and then pay Trey Hendrickson whatever it takes to make him like a top 3 edge rusher by average annual salary, or something like that. Boom. I just made the Seahawks defense better.
You're fixing multiple teams today, Mike.
Yes.
He's on fire.
Yes.
It's the Pit Vipers.
Yes, I am.
And while we're here, since it ties in with my power rankings team we talked about, I mentioned the Hutchinson getting a running mate, and Hendrickson does come to mind. Hutchinson and Hendrickson. I kind of like that. How about a 1st and a 3rd plus Davenport to the Bengals to get Hendrickson up in Detroit? And let's f***ing fly. All right, next.
Hey, Dennis. First time, long time. I'm in my mid-20s, and for my entire life, the Dallas Cowboys have embarrassed and frustrated me. I guess what I want to know is there any hope for me in terms of staying a fan while Jerry Jones and family own the team, or should I just resign to a life of mediocrity?
So many of us do. What's to stop you? If you are in your mid-20s, you were born right around the time of the Maury Povich show, not understanding mental illness, so like 99, 2000 era. Jordan, so that is, you've had a bunch of winning seasons in Dallas, but yeah, never getting over the hump. Do you think it's an ownership issue? What do you think about the Cowboys right now?
Yeah, yes, I do think it's an ownership issue. I think it's a vast corporation style of family-run business issue. I also think that there's a lot of things that we've seen over the last, especially some reporting out over the last couple of years about the business elements being prioritized versus the on-the-field product, even though the on-the-field product has not been terrible. It's just been not what it could be and not maximize some of the resources and some of the decision-making that is possible. You know what? I don't remember. I'm going to look at it again. I don't remember what I ranked the Cowboys this year. I think I had them in the top 20. Yeah, I had them at 20. I don't think they're going to be terrible. I think Schottenheimer actually, I really liked Mike's argument or the case of Schotty a few weeks ago when we talked about some of the new hires. I think that could work. If they fumble the Micah Parsons situation, you might just have to go sit in a corner and cry. Put on some Nirvana.
Something in the way. It's Jerry Jones.
I said it a couple weeks ago, though. I don't have a problem. They're playing the comp pick game. They have a lot of picks this year. I think they'll have a lot of picks again next year. It's the one thing they do well as a franchise. They seem to be able to draft and identify.
As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a coach.
Yeah, they do play the comp pick game well. You need to do more than that well in order to be a successful franchise, and you have to sign your ultra talented, like top 2 in the league players, and that's what they need to make sure they get done.
They will.
with.
They'll just pay an extra
Micah
$10 million for it, like they always do.
And they just want us to talk about it all
Yes,
summer. They get
exactly.
that money back on the other side.
Exactly.
All right, next. I like first time.
Hey,
long time.
heroes. I have 2 questions for you all. One, would you prefer your team's quarterback to be a gambling gunslinger or a check-down Charlie? And 2, if you had a personalized 2-topping pizza, what would you put on it? Bonus, what do you think Sessler would put on his totally normal pizza that humans eat? Thank you.
A lot there to digest. Also, can we cut the way that man said check down Charlie for a future drop? Is it weird that almost sounded like the New York Giants depth chart now, a quarterback that they have? Not that Russ is a check down Charlie, but he's been running some pretty conservative offenses or been part of them for a couple of years now. And then you have like an out of control maniac gunslinger in Jameis Winston. I don't think either brings you what you want, right? Which is a deep playoff run. But if I've watched so many boring offenses, give me the guy that's going to mix things up. And maybe you get the good version of a gunslinger con man like a Baker Mayfield, for instance, and we're having some fun out there. We'll start with that question.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to clarify my earlier stance. Like, I'm not saying that the Giants should line up in like a 8-yard deep shotgun and just fire the ball into the end zone on every throw. I understand that some
Connor
of the
getting ahead of his criticism
are not
from the
going
internet.
to be, I understand that
No,
some
he's
of the
still mad
passes
at me.
need to be like 3, 4, or 5 yards. So let me just, I'll start with that. I'd rather you try to push the ball down the field because I don't think that a defense respects a quarterback that doesn't have, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I think that it keeps the defense honest, and especially if your offensive line is god awful, at least take some people out of the box and alleviate some of the pressure on you sometimes. So I don't know. Give me a gunslinger. Give me one with some, alcohol problems or something crazy too, where he just comes on the field and is dangerous and just vomiting everywhere. Like, that's what I want.
This guy's f***ed up. Put him on the field.
Hell yeah. Todd Marinovich, God bless him, threw 10 touchdowns in a game one time.
Yeah,
while on heroin. Did you know that? In the Arena League.
His dad
How
was
awesome
a
is
dick.
that? Not awesome, but like, I'm just saying.
Yeah. And also on the topping side, Sessler, I've had pizza. It's the one food that I've ever been able to kind of enjoy with Marc. Marc is kind of a famous fooditarian, not a big fan of food, but he will eat pizza, and he has a cheese slice, totally human stuff. I as a native New Yorker, Northeast guy, I'm disgusted by Southern California, and I don't know if it's other places in the country, this idea that you need to pile on a pizza to make it something worth eating. If you're telling me a topping, all right, put some Italian sausage on there. But that's it for me. I don't know what you guys think with your pizza pies.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple on the pizza front. But I also can sort of picture you and Marc sitting there eating pizza together, but Marc's cutting his with a knife and a fork.
The knife and fork guy.
Yeah.
No, I hear that. Anybody else? He doesn't, though. He should. In fairness to Marc, he's not, because that is the biggest red flag any human could ever throw up.
It's to show that he knows what human utensils are. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
But it's actually a spoon and it's upside down. It's a classic alien mistake.
There is no spoon.
Yeah, there is no. Any other pizza takes before we move on?
Pineapple belongs on pizza.
You said what?
Pineapple belongs on pizza. They were made for each other.
We used to be a great country. All right, next. This is a two-parter. The two different callers with a similar topic. Pineapple and f***ing pizza.
What's up, heroes? I noticed that the Bears have better odds to win the Super Bowl than the Vikings. After a 14-win season, I think that's pretty ridiculous. So I'm just wondering if you think there's anything that they could do in this draft to swing those odds. Thanks. Bye.
What's up, everybody? Long-time listener, first-time caller. My name's Eric. I'm a Bears fan, and I just want to know, do you guys think I'm wasting my time every season getting excited that the Bears might have finally turned the corner? Or are we just destined to always be kicked in the teeth year after year after year? Do these line moves that the Bears have made this year actually make a difference? You know, they won the offseason last year, so it didn't matter. Are they going to win the offseason this year, and will it matter? I'll hang up and listen.
I'll hang up and listen. This is the only show I've ever wanted to do in my life, so I'm enjoying myself right now. Yes, here's the thing. What doomed the Chicago Bears last year is something that I've seen doom many teams, including my own last year. You could do anything you want. You could slap as much lipstick and mascara and blush on the pig as you want, but if you have a shit coaching staff that's overmatched, everything's going to go to hell. And I think that was the number one issue the Bears had. Now the question becomes, do you think the new guy, Ben Johnson, is going to fit into that spot well, and that staff is going to take a obviously talented roster and an improved roster and take it to a place of relevance? It's too early to say because I don't know what to make of Ben Johnson yet, but I reserve the right to be optimistic because, as I've said on the show before, Jordan, it's a great sports town, Chicago. It's a great football town, and Bears fans deserve better than what they've got the last, say, 20 years now.
I think that if you're talking about like the odds, right, then I think it's more like Ben Johnson is getting a bump.
Jordan's like, what are odds? Me no understand. Me just reporter.
Someone explain. So I think that I really did not know what a push was, by the way. So genuinely, thank you for explaining.
We got it. Yeah.
So I think they're getting the Ben Johnson bump. In terms of, and also like the overhaul of their offensive line, the fact that they still have a young quarterback who we did actually see play football a lot last year, but some good football mixed in there, along with a lot of disastrous things that happened all over the field. Still a good defense, way better coaching staff. And I think the win the offseason, just it's so much flatter when you have a coach like Eberflus who had come in the year prior. And yes, they did good things in the offseason structurally, or so they thought. But then also it was just a meh situation with that coach and with his staff that he went out and hired. And so I think that that's where you're seeing this bump come in combination with the fact that we have not seen JJ McCarthy play. If he is indeed the Vikings starting quarterback next fall, there's going to be a learning curve. I think we all know Kevin O'Connell can maximize a quarterback talent, but at the same time, we just have not seen it. That combined with the fact that if they don't get younger in some areas on defense, they will essentially waste a year of that defense while trying to get the offense up to the same pace as it. So I do think that that's kind of why you're seeing the odds shift around the way that they are. I like both teams. I think both teams are going to be competitive. And Eric, I think it's okay to feel things and then let yourself be hurt. I think it's okay.
That's important. That's great advice. Maury Povich, if you're listening. Next.
Hi, heroes. My name is Katie. I'm from Joplin, Missouri. Hey. Which player from the past would you like to see play in the modern NFL era? Thanks.
Now, as I often say, and thank you, Katie, always good to hear other people. This is an easy one. If you were born, as I say on the Throwback podcast with Bob often, like I was in exactly 1980, you just default to Bo Jackson. Just immediately. No one to me was more fascinating an athlete than Bo Jackson. His ability as a two-way star, that he was the most explosive running back in the country, and perhaps the greatest dual threat power hitter, center fielder in baseball. And for that reason alone, and then the way his career ended with the dislocated hip in the playoffs in 91 and how that just changed his life. To see Bo young and healthy again, because I think he would kick ass no matter there. It's not like when you took Dizzy Dean and then you're like, oh, how would he fare against Barry Bonds? Well, not well. No, I think Bo would kick ass in the modern era just like he did in the late 80s and early 90s. So Bo's my answer.
Marshall Faulk. Put him on the Chiefs.
Spicy. I would go O.J. Simpson as long as I'm allowed to change other stuff, too. and then kind of make it a double.
I know it's a bit, but also, yeah, OJ played for like bad Bills teams forever and was like the greatest running back who ever lived. Yeah.
Also, just like make him born in 2000, and then we don't have a lot of the problems that we had with OJ Simpson. So.
Are you? This is a very interesting butterfly effect right now, Connor. Because is he still wired as OJ was?
I think if you're born in 2000, you kind of referenced it with the Maury Povich thing. Maybe we just have more resources available to deal with your frustrations.
Wow. So you're actually trying to save lives, literally.
Yeah, two. Yeah, two in particular. Yeah,
yeah, specifically.
Wow. Oh, wow. OJ's a good one. Dan, if you want to kind of feel old, I was
Dan specifically.
I was in the 7th grade when Jerry Rice played for the Seahawks. So he would be a fun one. He'd be a fun one to bring up. But my real one is actually Seahawks related. Cortez Kennedy. Right now we got inside pass rushers kind of like on fire right now, and I think he was Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, the year I was born, 92, on a Seahawks team that I think lost 14 games. So just like imagining how badass you have to be as a defensive tackle on a team that was just totally garbage to be recognized for your excellence. He'd be fun to pop on pretty much any team, honestly. But I would love to throw him on a front that's like loaded currently, like the Rams or like the Eagles or something like that.
Good one. All right. Couple more.
Hey there. My name's Eli Newman from Atlanta, and I'm one of the 10 Panthers fans listening to this pod. My question's for Jordan specifically. As someone who's familiar with the Panthers organization, do you believe in the vision so far of Dave Canales and GM Dan Morgan? If so, how well do you think they will improve this year after the focus on defense and free agency? And if not, what do they need to do differently to get the Panthers from being a consistently below average team to a contender? Thanks, guys.
Panthers talk. I like this. And Jordan, if you are not aware, the former beat reporter for The Athletic of the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, and an organization still very near and dear to my heart, and I want them to do well, and I really love that fan base, and I want them to thrive and be happy because they have been miserable for quite some time now. So, yeah, okay, first of all, I like actually some of the direction their roster is taking. I love Bryce Young. I've been high on him forever. And I love their offensive line. I think that they're looking at a couple of the receiver positions in a more modern way than they had typically in that organization in the past. And I think that they're balancing a complement and looking to, again, add to that position in the draft to continue to balance a complement of players around what Bryce Young's skill set is and how he can sort of distribute the ball. What I think in terms of the organization as a whole, I think you really saw positive progress with Dave Canales and how he coaches, how he makes decisions, not only for the structure of the offense and for the psyche of the offense as a whole, for the culture. I do think there's like some positivity permeating through that building, some good vibes for the first time in a while. And I think that now the challenge with himself and Dan Morgan is to adequately communicate the types of players specifically on the defensive side that best maximize and fit with Ejiro Evero's scheme. I think that Ejiro Evero gets a lot of negative talk about obviously a horrible defensive performance, historically bad defensive performance last year. But I also think you could make the argument that a ton of those players, especially after they lost Derek Brown to injury, were just not adequately up to not only the talent level that they needed to be, but also they just did not fit or match sort of schematically what that was. And this is a product of a front office that has seen so much turnover, that's changed their pro scouting, that's changed their college scouting, that doesn't even have like functional algorithmic programming in place to log and ascertain what these players are doing and what their outputs are. And there's not even a basic organizational system when you change turnover that fast. So I think that's Dan Morgan's challenge, is to not just be able to put some actual, some modern programming in place and a language of their scouting and talent identification system into place, but also have that marry with Dave Canales, which again, because of all of the turnover, they just have not been able to do, to get on that same page where you're communicating effectively the scheme you want, both offensive coach and defensive coach, and how specifically it matches with the talent ID process. That's, I think, the biggest problem that they've had. the biggest problem that they do have right now, and something that over time you're going to start to see them attack. And continuity will help with that. So it's good that they hit the head coach correctly, because you have to have continuity in order to actually build that programming. So I am optimistic. I'm also like an optimist by nature. So take that with a grain of salt. But I do think that if they like legitimately dig deep onto that functionality of the organization, that is where you are going to start to actually see like tangible progress on the defensive side.
Functional algorithmic programming. Took the words right out of my mouth.
That's what the Jaguars system will be called.
All right, one more, and then we say goodbye. Good job, Jordan. That was beautifully done.
What up, Dan, Connor, everyone? This is Jordan from Green Bay. Just
Good
calling
name.
to say that I think if I had to choose between farting into the wind and listening to Nirvana, I think I would turn around and swallow my own farts. Terrible work. Or whatever. I don't know. Life is hard.
Yeah!
Are you okay?
Yeah! Jordan, send me your address.
Add this other Jordan to my worry list right behind Connor.
I'm going to send you some real music. Yeah!
Yep, these are our listeners. Beautiful. That was fun. Thank you to everybody who sent in voicemails to our toll-free number. I don't even know if it's toll-free. Who knows? But we appreciate it. And we'll do that again down the line. All right. One station note before we sign off for the week. Patreon.com/Heed the Call. It's premiere week. It came from the subreddit. Premieres on Friday. So make sure you're there where I go through how brave can one man be to go to the depths of the subreddit and see what you serpents are talking about and confront the difficult questions around the program and the fun ones as well. So make sure you're there for that. You have to sign up to be a part of it. Patreon.com/Heed the Call. It came from the subreddit. Jordan, Mike, Connor, great work. Holding it down. Sessdog's doing what he's doing. And we made it through the week. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I am really excited. I actually have like a programming note scheduled to make sure I catch the earliest version possible of your Patreon episode. It came from the subreddit because, as you guys know, I used to be a subreddit lurker back, especially during COVID, because it was like a really funny, nice little community hang, right? And now I've been so terrified. Like I have a Reddit account, and I am so terrified to even go near, because I'm like, if I see something, even one word that is just, it could destroy me spiritually, psychologically. Like Connor and I have talked about this. Like I'm so scared to even look at this point, because I'm like, oh my God, like
this
my
is
community.
This is not for the meek of heart, this program, and I'm taking on the battle head on, and we'll see if it changes me fundamentally as a person. But check it out. Thanks to everybody. We'll be back with another week of shows, and we appreciate your support. Until next time, heed the call.